Okay, good morning. Calling to order this meeting in the House Children, Families, Finance, and Policy Committee. We've got a few folks running a little bit late, so I'm going to take, wait just a bit before taking the roll. Appreciate those folks who were here, and hopefully you appreciated getting the extra 15 minutes this morning. Had a bill up in another committee. So, and I know we have a couple of amendments we didn't have printouts, so we're getting printouts of those amendments. They were posted online for some of the bills we have. So we are going to start with a brief presentation on the investments that we had in early care and learning from the MDE perspective, Department of Education perspective. And so I'm going to ask our MD representatives to come on up, please. We have Commissioner Burnham, I can see. And as you get settled in, and so today, members, you may have noticed a theme. These bills all relate to the early learning slash MDE side of our committee's work. Try to kind of batch them. And so, Commissioner, if you can, once you're settled in, identify yourself and please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chair Pinto. Good morning, everyone. My name is Bobby Burnham, and I serve as the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Teaching and Learning at the Department of Education. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. I feel like I haven't been in front of this committee for quite some time. So we are here to provide an update on the many implementation efforts on all the wonderful early learning programs that were passed in the 2023 legislature. So much of the legislature that was passed has been really crucial to making the One Minnesota budget and the Due North plan come to life. It is really clear that the 2023 legislative session has already had a dramatic impact on the lives of children, families, and our educators across the state. I, as well as other cabinet members, have spent a lot of time traveling the state and visiting schools, and so much appreciation has been expressed on these visits. They are very thankful for the increased access to early childhood opportunities in a variety of settings, for the work we're doing around early literacy, starting with our youngest learners through the READ Act, and for our commitment to addressing staffing challenges by putting resources toward recruitment, retention, and professional development for both our school-based programs and in partnership with our colleagues at DHS for the child care programs. Oops, wrong way. All right, I can't multitask here. There we go. So we are working to implement programs and fundings that were passed into law, and I'll be sharing the status of some of that work today. Also with us today is our Director of Early Learning Services, Nikki Kovan, who I must say must be one of the hardest working early childhood advocates in the state that we have right now. I'm very appreciative of Nikki and her efforts to ensure a smooth transition of our early learning services programs and teams to the new Department of Children, Youth, and Families. And so Nikki's here to answer all the tough questions. Our first program we're going to talk about is the addition of two new FTEs to the Department for Early Childhood Family Education. As we know, this has been a long-term desire of our advocates, and we are in the process of going through interviews for those two positions and should have those in place shortly. For our early childhood health and developmental screening, I think for as long as I've been at the department and can remember, districts have not been fully reimbursed for the early childhood health and developmental screening, so this is a wonderful 30% increase that is going a long ways to address that issue. For our voluntary pre-K program, districts and charter schools have updated applications in the spring of 2023, and we are officially allocated the 4,000 seats for the 2023-24 school year, and future application process will provide opportunity for districts and charters to apply for additional new seats. So with that VPK, seats are included, as you know, in the calculation of general education revenue. For FY '24 and '25, just over 90 million was set aside for additional seats, and for FY '26 and '27, over 180 million was allocated. This is providing much needed stability and opportunity for more schools to provide service. For the Grow Your Own Early Childhood and Workforce Initiative for early childhood and family educators, this money is in a special revenue account, so that money will always stay in that account, and the programs can use these grants to develop an early childhood education workforce that more closely reflects the state's increasingly diverse student population and ensures all students have equitable access to high-quality early educators. The RFP has closed and grant agreements will be signed in the early spring. The curriculum grants, again, the request for proposal for the grant opportunity was released and will close at the end of March, with grant agreements anticipated for early summer. Early learning scholarships. So implementation update is the IT systems changes and guidance that are underway to support the policies are going to make a huge difference in this program. In the first 6 months, 2,120 new children received a scholarship. Of those, 1,094 were from one of the priority areas. The online early learning scholarship application is using the IT administrative funds that were appropriated for the early learning scholarship program. MDE is contracted with a professional services company to design and build a digital application hub for families and administrators processing the scholarship applications. This project is being built in alignment with the DHS licensing hub to support future alignment between the early care and education programming. A pilot with 2 tribal and 2 local administrators went live in January, and next steps, MDE will be kicking off the digital transformation build phase for early learning scholarships. Just a couple comments from a couple of the area administrators. One have said, I feel that more families will keep in contact with us regarding their child's scholarship because of this digital system. Another said, this has been the best experience I have had when beginning an implementation of a new system. So that's pretty high praise for some state systems. Great Start Scholarship Program. Work is underway to understand and document the requirements for each program, and alignment between the programs began in advance of this work. So MDE and DHS have been really working in partnership to prepare for the implementation of this Great Start Scholarship Program, and the positions are posted to support this work. The kindergarten fall assessment is another exciting. As many of us know, we've been working toward this for, I can't remember, as far back as I've been attending sessions, we've been trying to get this kindergarten fall assessment. So this will be one of the programs that stay at the Department of Ed. And the implementation update is MDE will provide districts and charter schools with the KFA, including access to training. Year 1 is focused on community and partner input, so we are in the process of community engagement there. Year 2 will focus on piloting and testing and continued community and partner input. Year 3 will focus on implementation, reporting, and continued community and partner feedback. A contract for the engagement was recently signed, and district and family engagement will be underway very soon. So with that is the implementation update from the MDE Early Learning Services programs.
Efficiently presented and terrific work. Thank you, Commissioner, and many thanks to the MDE staff who've put so much work into all of this. We really appreciate it. Members, we've got a little bit of time for questions. Folks have any for Commissioner Burnham? Looking to see if there are any. Oh, Representative Katiza-Watum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Commissioner, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to share with you that at the end of last session, when I went back to my ECFE class in Eden Prairie and shared that we had funded those two full-time FTE slots, there was joyous celebration in the room. So both the parents in my class and our teaching staff was thrilled to hear that because, they're just so looking forward to the support. And while I know that we have a really robust program in Eden Prairie, I know that not every district is as lucky. And I'm so excited to see families get the support that they need all across the state. Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Representative Coutinho. That was a long slog for the ECFE folks, and I know they're really excited about it. Representative Lesnikar, I think you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. My question is regarding the voluntary pre-K. We did an expansion in last year. I'm wondering if you have any data. There was also a provision to increase the teaching requirements to a 4-year degree. And I'm wondering if you have data that says how many teachers are going to, what the numbers are that of teachers that do not have a 4-year degree that are in the voluntary pre-K program, how many of them are going to need to have a 4-year degree, and what that's going to look like to sustain that program in this Grow Your Own and that initiative. I wondered if you could answer that. Thank you.
And maybe, Commissioner, could you first just remind us about the changes that we did make and what the requirements are regarding education, but then certainly answer Representative Lesnikar's question. Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Pinto. Commissioner, the requirement in VPK, and I'm looking over to Nikki as well, because she may need to come up and help me with this.
That's fine. That's fine if you need to.
Okay.
Just to say. Yeah, exactly. Phone a friend, exactly. And so once you settle in, if you can identify yourself, Ms. Covan, then orient us, please.
Hi, everyone. Nikki Covan. I'm the Director of Early Learning at the Minnesota Department of Education. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
So the requirement has always been to have a 4-year degree. The change that was made was to add, to require a early childhood license.
Okay.
And that requirement was delayed and doesn't go into effect until, I believe, 2028. And there is a grandfather clause that's built within it that will allow people who are currently working in the classroom as a lead teacher to remain in that if they've been in that role for a certain number of time, for a time period. I can't remember the exacts.
So I guess there wouldn't have been much of a change yet because it hasn't gone into effect until 2028,
Exactly.
grandfather. But back to you, Representative Lesnikar, if you have follow-ups. Yeah.
Thank you. That's the clarification I wanted. I've had a lot of feedback from people saying, I've been doing this for 20 years. I don't want to go back and get a different educational license. So I'd like to see the language of how that is so I can share that with people on what the credentialing is and what what's grandfathered in for that 2028, because there's a large section of people that have that question. Thank
Sure.
you.
I think we can
Thank you,
follow up with
Ms.
you.
Covan.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. We can follow up with you with more information.
Please do, yeah, to all of us, yeah. And Representative Lesnigar, to your point, with all the challenges in our early care and learning space, the workforce, the expertise, the people actually doing the work, right? That's one of the strengths, and just the diversity in terms of representing communities all over. So we certainly don't want to lose that. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. Anything else from anybody? These folks here. Representative Lesnigar, sure.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. For the parent aware, so we have the parent aware standard, and I understand that. So can you explain that to me? Because to my understanding, that exists in the family child care model and the freestanding center model for the parent aware scoring. Do we do that same model in the pre-K school-based? Do we have parent aware for families to look at that? Is that model across all 3 corners of this triangle? Could you explain that?
Ms. Coven, if you can, just help remind us about all that.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative. We do have it's like a fast track, essentially, for school-based public pre-K programs to get certified in the parent-aware system so that they are eligible for early learning scholarships and all of the other things that parent-aware rating allows programs to take advantage of. And we do have a crosswalk that shows sort of how the standards are met in those public pre-K programs, Head Start is another example where there's a certified or a fast track, essentially, for them to get Parent Aware rated. But you are right that to go through the full Parent Aware process, it is family child care and licensed center-based care that goes through the full Parent Aware rating process.
If you could get us some reminder about that, that'd be really helpful. I know I'm thinking about like YMCA's, I think, are another example that have that's sort of certified. I could be
If
quite
they
a
are
little bit wrong.
accredited,
That's cool.
if they're part of a nationally accredited.
Yeah, but we could certainly love to get more information on that. Representative Lesnar.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. Yeah, my question, I would like to see that. I would like to see what the fast track is, what the curriculum is for the Parent Aware for family centers and for freestanding centers versus the other models that exist. And are all the same expectations? Is it apples to apples or is it apples to a grapefruit? Because we have over 1,000 family child care providers that we've lost, and we really haven't gained many centers. And if we don't have child care in greater Minnesota and Metro, we won't have a strong workforce. And so I just want to make sure we have equity for our educators and our teachers, and our model of wherever your kid is, regardless of zip code, Parent Aware should look similar to me, I would think. And so I just want to see what that looks like. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Representative Lesnar. Okay, I think that's all that we have then, and so much appreciate. Yeah, if you can make sure to gather that information, I know our staff will assist with that as well. An important topic. Thank you so much to both of you and your whole teams. We really appreciate you being here and certainly your work. Thank you. So members, I think Representative Coulter has a bit of a schedule squeeze. So we're going to have to move things around a little bit. As you're heading up, Representative Coulter, we do have a quorum. I'm not going to go through the roll call like we typically would, and I'm going to shake things up, I think, a bit for the minutes. And rather than calling on Vice Chair Keeler, I'll see if there's a member who wants to move approval of our minutes of February 22nd, just to shake it up. Anybody want to do that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Representative Katiza-Watun, appreciate it. Any discussion, any additions or corrections, members? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of minutes on February 20th, please. Oh, Nelson, I'm sorry, Representative Nelson.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Are you talking the joint meeting or just the, just our?
I think I said February 20th, so that's just the single, that was just us.
Okay.
We're going to get to the joint meeting in a second, yeah. Thank you for, thank you for the clarification. Additions or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our minutes for February 20th are approved. That motion passes. And the same thing for the February 22nd minutes, joint minutes. Representative Nelson, I don't know if you...
I'll go ahead and move those.
Okay.
With the correction, I think
Yep.
it's supposed to be Mike Weiner and not Mark Weiner.
Oh, my goodness gracious. Okay.
Anyway.
Okay, thanks. We will, so with that, so correcting Mark to Mike in the name of our colleague, Representative Nelson has moved approval of the joint minutes on February 22nd. Any additions or corrections beyond the one we noted? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the February 22nd minutes, please say aye. 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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Representative Nelson, congratulations. And the minutes of February 22nd are approved. So Representative Coulter is up. House File 3721 is, Representative Coulter moves that bill for re-referral to the Committee on Education Finance is the current plan. And so Representative Coulter, please present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and that is indeed my motion, and thank you for your flexibility. I'm expected to speak somewhere at 9:25, so I'm hoping I can still make that. So I am here today with House File 3721, and this relates to school-age care programs, and specifically the resources that they have available. So
Actually, Representative Coulter, I'm just going to pause you for a second. Please keep on going, clerks and pages. There's a couple amendments that weren't in the physical packets for folks. They were posted online. They actually relate to the other two bills, so just to avoid any confusion, the amendments being handed out now do not relate to the current bill. So make sure we're not too confused by that. Yeah. Representative Coulter's
had
traveling.
a brief moment of panic there. So.
Traveling clean. No, it's all good. So just so we're not confused, sorry, Representative Coulter, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So currently, school districts operate adult supervised programs for students in kindergarten through age 6 that operate before and after the school day and occasionally during summer as well. These programs are funded primarily through fees, but districts can also levy for funding needed to support students with disabilities or temporary family or other related problems. And obviously, in the past few years, these programs, the number of these programs and the variety of programming offered has been increasing. And this is particularly asserted itself in the way school districts have developed wraparound services for various students. And so what this bill specifically does is it expands the use of the school age care revenue and the school age care levy to meet those needs. And again, I want to clarify that specifically with regards to the levy, that funding can only be used for, to support students with disabilities and students experiencing temporary family or other related issues, just to sort of clarify what that levy funding can and cannot be used for. Examples would include compensation for additional needed staff, paras, sign language interpreters, and so on, as well as special needs coordinators. Purchasing equipment for supplies for students with special needs, sensory materials, adaptive chairs and desks, picture communication materials, and that sort of thing, as well as extra transportation and training costs. So House File 3721 would ensure that districts are better able to serve all pre-K students and would have better access to the resources needed to serve those students with developmental and or physical disabilities and other family-related issues. So that is sort of in broad strokes the bill. I do have a testifier, but certainly happy to take questions as well.
Let's go to your testifier. Please identify yourself. Welcome and proceed.
Good
with
morning.
your testimony.
Good morning, Chair Pinto and committee members. My name is Corey Franson. I serve the communities of the Elk River ISD 728 School District as the Director of Community Engagement and Community Education. I am here today to share my advocacy and support for the proposed amendments to the Minnesota Statute on School-Age Child Care Revenue as stated in House File 3721. The School-Age Child Care Levy provides critical resources for supporting students with developmental or behavioral needs or children experiencing those family or related problems of a temporary nature who need to participate in those school-age child care services. As school districts provide services through early childhood special education, voluntary pre-kindergarten programs, school readiness plus programs, or school readiness programs in general, families have expressed interest in removing barriers for access to those programming services. This includes transportation to and from those programs, flexible scheduling of when those programs are available, and wraparound child care services to give those families the extended wraparound day. Community Education is currently making those wraparound child care services available to early childhood families to remove the barrier of care outside of their students' preschool or special education experience. These fee-based child care programs are similar in setup and operation to the kindergarten through 6th grade school-age child care that is delivered in before and after school programs. Currently, the school-age child care levy cannot be used for those early child care participants due to the age limitations set up in the school-age child care levy statutory language. This proposal is intended to bring those same support services into the existing preschool wraparound services that we're providing. I appreciate the time today to advocate in support of this important legislation for our preschool learners, and on behalf of community educators across the state, I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I'll note, members, we have a number of letters relating to the bill in your packets, which I'm sure we'll get to. And we'll see if there's anybody who's physically present who wishes to testify regarding the bill at this time. Any member of the public? And not seeing anyone at this point. But again, want to make sure folks are aware of the letters in the packets. And so at this point, Representative Coulter, I think we'll move to questions and discussion, if that's all right. So members, questions or discussions regarding the bill? Oh, Representative Katiza-Wittun.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for bringing this proposal forward, Representative. I have a question. I mean, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. So, and potentially House Research can help clarify a little bit. But when I am looking at the bill in line 3.3, it's going from $2,300 up to like $16,000. Does that mean that the schools are able to levy the public and the community for that much more money, or that the schools can repurpose existing money that they have to support the preschool programming?
I'm thinking this might be a question for Ms. Beckel from House Fiscal. Ms. Beckel, can you clarify that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative Solveig Beckel, House Fiscal. So the number listed in the bill on that line, the $16,476, that is the dollar amount that Ms. Mock changed to set the amount at 25% instead of the previous number, which was fairly low. This was just sort of a placeholder. It can certainly change because this is the equalizing factor for the levy. This gets a little complicated, but when it comes to using an equalizing factor to determine the levy for the school-age care, this is the dollar amount that you actually divide the district adjusted net tax capacity per pupil unit by, and then multiply that by the approved school-age care revenue to determine the levy amount. So the higher that the equalizing factor is, means that the denominator is higher, so that your dollar amount for the levy is lower, meaning that the impact on property taxes on the community, the dollar amount is lower, and that means the state pays a higher proportion. Currently, school-age care is almost entirely levy for most communities, so the state is paying relatively little. So by increasing the equalizing factor, increasing that denominator, sorry, some of you are giving me just incredulous looks.
We're just surprised that it's so simple. We just didn't.
So by increasing the equalizing factor, which is the denominator, you are actually lowering the impact on property taxes. And again, this number certainly could change depending on the dollar amount that the state would like to put towards this effort.
I have a thought relating to that, but I'm going to go back to the question. Representative Katiza.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Beckel. That actually was very helpful to me. So, I mean, essentially, it's just depending on what we choose, and maybe the Education Finance Committee in their budgetary process would choose that $16,000 number, but it's allowing the state to support communities better in the preschool programming options for children in their district.
Ms. Beckel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Representative. Yes, and I should also add, changing this would then also allow for what could be a levy neutral impact to increasing the number of students involved for preschool care. So it could be that communities would feel no impact as well, and the state would then absorb that impact. So again, it's generally trying to keep the impact off of the property taxes and make the state absorb the costs that this change would create. Sorry if I made it seem as though this would lower property taxes, but yeah, so the state would absorb the cost that this increase to the program would create.
Okay, yeah, and just to, I just want to make sure, because in my head, this seems like the kind of thing, Ms. Beckel, that sort of this part of the bill, to a certain extent, that's why it's going to education finance. They'd have to figure out the number. It comes out of that. Sort of the question for us is you know, in a way, so the rest of the bill and some of the aspects, and certainly we've got, you know, concerns expressed. But I mean, ultimately what that number is and whether it even makes sense to do the kind of things you describe are going to be within the purview of education finance more than our committee. That seems, is that right, Ms. Beckel? Okay, yeah. Okay, Vice Chair Keeler, and then we'll have Representative Davis. Vice Chair Keeler.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully my question doesn't require so much mathing this early in the morning. Page 2, line 23, I guess for me, can you walk through what it would be if a child is experiencing family or related problems of a temporary nature? One, what are examples of those, and what is the temporary time frame? It just feels very loose in here, and I think, like, who makes that decision? If we could maybe clear up some of that language, and the time frame might just be more helpful in practical outcomes.
I'm happy to answer that. Thank you,
Sure.
Chair
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Representative. Typically, we partner a lot with our existing school district systems as it relates to like the McKinney-Vento Act. So typically, it's things if your family had a house fire, there's a homelessness nature, that's a temporary situation. Those are usually the types of examples that come forward in those circumstances. As far as the timelines of how long those funds would be used for, that isn't defined, but typically comes down to those same practices and procedures that are happening within school districts as it relates to situations like the McKinney-Vento Act.
Vice Chair Keeler.
Sure, thank you. And McKinney-Vento tells us that if we are unsheltered one night, we get services for the entire school year. Is that, so that's what you're saying to me, that's what this program would be eligible for?
It
Mr.
could
Franson.
potential, thank you, Chair and Representative, it could potentially be for the entire school year.
Vice Chair Keeler.
So who determines that? Like, who is the individual within the school districts or in the organizations that would determine the cutoff time, the eligibility? Because what I worry about is that it's just an individual making a choice about a family without maybe clear guidelines.
Yeah,
Mr. Franson.
Thank you, Chair and Representative. I'd have to clarify exactly what the language would specifically be to that. I would assume it would fall to either the community ed director that's in charge of those funds or the superintendent.
Vice Chair Keeler.
Sure, I think I think I would like it to see a little bit more descriptive, just moving forward, because often, our words really matter in this language. And so, I don't want Moorhead to look at it different than Elk River or another community. It would just allow us to align and fall within the standards and parameters consistently across the state. Thank you.
Thank you. And I misread, it was Lee Daniels rather than Representative Davis. My apologies. Lee Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few overall questions. I've been working on a couple bills from Representative Loon from way back when, and talking about transparency in levies. A number of our levies are not voter approved. They're just ongoing levies. So first question I have for Representative Coulter, is this an ongoing levy that's not voted on?
Representative Coulter.
I guess might have to phone a friend on that one, maybe.
Maybe Ms. Beckel can help
Nonpartisan
us.
staff can help us
I
out.
can, in terms of interpreting the bill, our staff probably can help us. Ms. Beckel, can you help us with that?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Representative. So the school age care levy is a levy that is not specifically voted on. There are a number of programs that include levies that are not specifically voted on by the population within the general education formula itself, the components that make up that formula, as well as a number of the
The microphones are everywhere.
as well as a number of the categorical education funding programs. So it just is sort of what the state sort of expects the local contribution is, and then the state aid contribution. And so again, the levy can be set very low if the state were to increase the state proportion of aid. And in some areas, the state aid is just very low because the levy equalizing factor is so small.
Lee Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Beckel, then, it's been a while since I've been on the Education Committee. If I remember right, there was 2 different non-voting levies for a total of about $730 per pupil. Am I way off, or is that close?
Ms. Beckel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Lee Daniels. I believe you might be referencing local optional revenue. Yes. So that is just one item that has a levy attached to it. There are a number of other funding items, funding streams within the education realm that have levies attached to them. So I would say that there's a great deal more than that on which people do not necessarily vote. There's a variety of levies that are not directly attached to referenda.
Lee Daniels.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Beckel. Thank you, Chair. I wish I would have had the time and got the committee hearings on these. There's 4 different bills I was going to bring up for transparency. So if these levies are automatically, they're not voted on, let the public know anytime there's a levy coming up or maybe an election coming up, let them know what there already is in place. It'd be nice to see a number of how many thousands of dollars the school can levy without a vote.
Yeah.
And then the second part of my question was, somebody mentioned about property taxes would probably not go up. They'll go on to the state. So now we're doing a more state spending with not knowing what our 25, 26 years will be for the budget.
Though, again, a reminder, Lee Daniels, this is sort of, I think some of those points are probably more directed to education finance. I know you're not on that committee, neither am I, but you know, we're sort of approving, we would be approving our portion of this, but ultimately, those are sort of questions for that committee. But Lee Daniels?
Yeah, just the fact that we already are on I'd say a tight budget because projections are to be in the red within a year or two, and we don't want to start something we can't finish. Right. You know, so anyway, that's my comments is a transparency in these levies, and evidently they're not voted on, so that's kind of not a good thing. And then this would be ongoing funding. Once you start the funding machine, you can't shut it off.
Understood.
So just my concerns.
Thank you, Lee Daniels. And Representative Coulter, I wanted to ask, because we do have a number of concerns expressed by family child care providers, and we know that they're an extremely important part of our state's delivery of early care and learning. And so can you just, you and I have spoken a little bit, and it seems like perhaps there's some misunderstandings about the bill, but if you could just address the concerns expressed by family child care providers about the bill. That hasn't been brought up by other members, but it's in the letters, and so I want to make sure that I bring it up. Representative Coulter.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, and I will say that conversations have begun and are ongoing between family child care providers and the Community Education Association about sort of the specifics of those concerns. My understanding is that the lion's share of the concern amounts to the fact that the concern is that these programs may draw children who would otherwise go to family child care providers. And I think the response to that is that these programs currently exist already, that many districts already provide these programs. And I would say that these programs are also generally more designed to sort of function around the concept of school care. That's why they're called school age care programs, right? They function mostly before and after the school day and occasionally during the summer and so on, kind of depending on how each district sort of runs their individual program. And I think there are broader concerns related to funding that are I would say, just not founded. These programs are funded, as we've discussed, through state aid, through a local levy. So there is just sort of separate funding streams than what family child care centers would be seeing. So I think there's just some sort of misunderstanding and miscommunication, I would say, generally.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments from anybody? Oh, Representative Lesnicar, yeah.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative Coulter. I understand what this bill is, and as a parent, I've used after-school programs and school-based programs. So with that being said, my concern is the triangle for childcare in Minnesota. When we elevate one at the expense of two others, we have not achieved a net gain as a Children and Families Committee on the issue of childcare. That's what I'm speaking about. This is a definite erosion to family childcare. And for greater Minnesota, and even for people that live in metro and suburbs, I'm called all the time. We work shift work. We have manufacturing. We have healthcare jobs. We need to have family childcare providers. And the fact that we are elevating one without the other two, when we have family childcare providers who are early educated, they're teachers, there's all kinds of background. 20, 30 years of experience. I talked to a woman that's done it 40 years in St. Cloud, a physician's mother who's done it forever. And these models are desired by people, and we are, without a doubt, when First Finance testified in November when we had our committee, they made it clear that the surveyors are showing that the financial viability of family childcare and freestanding centers are at risk. They sounded the alarm. And that was after we got out of session for this committee. And so we have the data saying that from our providers. And what are we doing for the providers except further decimating the programs where we have our infants and our toddlers? And so, and the other part is people want to keep their families together. And so, I had 2 boys 2 years apart. That was my goal, was that as siblings, they were playing together. They were together and making it easy for families. And so the family child care model is doing child care and child care education too. And the families have to have the opportunities to pick what works for them best. And so I'm a proponent of the entire triangle, but not anything that's going to decimate the other 2. And from what I see, and the regulations are just not equal. So the family model, we have the parent aware, but it doesn't apply in all 3 corners. And so families, that's misleading to families. They're picking models that are, for a Great Start initiative for children, but the models of education, training, and requirements to be X are not the same. And we have to be addressing that too. So, I appreciate the interest. I've been for after-school programs for kids. Parks and Recs did that. I've worked with all these programs. We need to be doing a full model. But when we elevate one and destroy the other 2, we are not gaining ground for childcare, which is the essential ingredient for workforce. And I would hope that this would be considered in this, because that is the effect. And there's consequences, unintended consequences from things that sound great. But this is a definite unintended consequence that will hurt our communities. And when there's no infant and toddler child care, we're right back to a negative. So that's my concern, and I think we need to seriously address that at this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Zalesnikar. I'm going to go back to you, Representative Coulter, but Representative Hicks, did you have something that you wanted to know? Yeah, Representative Hicks.
I just had a quick question, because I know now, after-school programs through the district, children with IEPs and disabilities receive different accommodations and supports because they're federally funded, and so there's 504, and there's IEPs can be followed and all of those kinds of things, which as a parent of a kid that gets kicked out of everything, is really nice to have some protections. Wanted to make sure that this expansion would still include those supports for kids with disabilities, those same protections?
Mr. Franson.
Yes, thank you, Chair Pinto and Representative. Though IEPs are not specifically, it depends on how the IEP is written, whether or not it's inclusive of the out-of-school time. 504 plans, though, absolutely are the responsibility under the Community Ed umbrella. So this is a great example of where we use those funds to help support students who have those levels of need. Often, Community Ed departments partner with the Special Ed department to figure out what's the best practice to help this child be truly successful in these programs. That's how we make sure that there is that consistency within the school day to the out-of-school time experience. And through these funds, we have that opportunity to do that.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Representative Hicks. Okay, so Representative Coulter, we'll go back to you. I think I'll note, and I had spoken with Representative Coulter about this earlier, I'm kind of inclined, given some of the concerns expressed and sort of all things considered, I know Representative Keeler mentioned a possible language tweak. We've got our concerns expressed by family child care that I think we can address, but I want to make sure that we do that in our committee as opposed to sending it on. So I'm inclined to lay the bill over at this point, and then we can bring it back on up. But Representative Coulter, final comments in response to anything that's been brought up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just briefly to address some of the more recent concerns we heard, I would just, first of all, draw members' attention to line 1.9, just to be clear that these programs serve children aged 33 months or older, so that would not include infant care. This is specifically pre-K. And I guess, again, to sort of respond to those concerns, these are programs that already exist. School districts are already offering these. All this bill does is really expand the revenue that they have available to provide services, again, to students with disabilities or the temporary family or other related issues that we mentioned before. So this bill does not expand these programs. It does not certainly require districts to offer them or expand them in any way. So I would push back a little bit on the notion that this is elevating any one particular type of program or the other. I think this is ensuring that families that the resources are available to support families for whatever their individual situation may be. I am a parent of young kids. I know a lot of other parents of young kids. I know folks who take advantage of a variety of different childcare arrangements, sometimes even depending on the day, depending on their individual schedules. And so I think that's really what this bill gets to. I would just say in closing, I certainly agree that there is work that can be done on this bill, and want to again extend, as I always do, the invitation to any members of this committee to reach out to me and work on this or any other bills that address some of the issues that we've discussed here today.
Thank you so much, Representative Coulter. So as I say, the chair is laying over House File 3721, not to say that I don't fully expect it to be voted out of our committee, but it sounds like there may be some value to some continued conversations about it. And thank you for your work on it. And Mr. Franson, thank you for your work and for bringing it forward. Really appreciate it. So that bill has been laid over, and Representative Pérez-Vega is going to head on up and has two bills. And it sounds like the plan is to go in the order we have on our agenda. So House File 4176 comes up first. And Representative Pérez-Vega moves that bill before the committee. The plan is to lay over this bill as well. This is the department's early learning policy bill. And so Representative Pérez-Vega, when you're ready, please present your bill, and then we'll bring in your testifier. I'm sorry, there is an amendment. Thank you, Vice Chair Keeler and Representative Pérez-Vega. So should we do that amendment? It's the A24-0216 amendment. Representative Pérez-Vega, are you moving that amendment?
Yes, I'd like to move forward with the A24 amendment.
Okay, and then members, maybe you could just, either Representative Pérez-Vega or Ms. Morse can just describe that amendment. Should we? Yeah, Representative Pérez-Vega, either way. Or
Yeah,
Ms.
it's just the amendment that supports the transition to kindergarten. And it's right in, and for non-application years, the commissioner must annually review the distribution of seats allocated that may distribute them between sites within a district at the request and between districts for the year in which a district will not utilize their full allocation. So that's moving forward.
It's kind of making some adjustments as MDs continue working on its own bill. So good stuff. Maybe we'll just see if members have any questions regarding that amendment. And hearing none, all in favor of approval of the A24 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so motion passes. So House File 4176 as amended is before us, and so I'm not sure if the bill's author or Ms. Morse is going to go first, but yeah, Representative Pérez-Vega.
Thank you, members of this wonderful committee that I'm so lucky to be on. We're coming back just to with the HF 4176. This is a governor's early education policy bill on our earliest learners. We're bringing back our VPK languages that merges the pre-K and school readiness plus programs and making changes to those merged programs. There's quite a bit of definitions in regards to the early learning scholarships and separating the definitions of kindergarten from pre-kindergarten. I think that's very important. And additionally, this clarifies just requirements for the ECSC or Part C services. There's quite a couple sections between 1 through 10, and it's just defining the language really between kindergarten and pre-K. And I've got this great, amazing person, Shanna Morse from MDE, who's going to help clarify and define more of the language. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Representative Pérez-Vega. And Ms. Morse, please identify yourself and proceed.
Mr. Chair, members, good morning. My name is Shana Morse. I am the Assistant Director of Government Relations at the Department of Education. And as Representative Pérez-Vega said, House File 4176 is a standalone bill reflecting the pieces of the governor's larger policy bill related to early childhood education and the jurisdiction of this committee. So these provisions can also be found in House File 3782, which was heard yesterday afternoon in the Education Policy Committee. First, I want to thank Representative Pérez-Vega for carrying this bill and for her commitment to early childhood education and continued learning. Couldn't be more happy about that. I'll briefly just share, in the interest of time, the intent of what we're doing in the bill. Sections 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8 are purely technical and don't change anything in practice. Happy to answer any questions that I can about those, but again, given the limited time, wanted to just highlight a couple of things that are having changes overall, or will result in changes overall. The bill this year and our approach generally and broadly has really been looking at technical changes, streamlining processes, and cleaning up any little kind of straggling, ambiguous language from 2023. But besides that, sections 3, 9, and 10 in this bill are seeking to make some programmatic changes to merge the voluntary pre-kindergarten or VPK program with School Readiness Plus SRP, beginning in school year 25-26. So as you heard earlier, the seats have already been allocated for this upcoming school year. This is a year delay. Currently, these two programs are technically written as two things in law. They share the same funding stream, they share the same seat allocation, and essentially they have almost identical programmatic requirements. One of those programmatic differences that has historically existed, you also heard about earlier today, it's been reconciled as licensing is going to be required for all early childhood educators, so that's no longer a difference. It used to be required for the SRP program, not for the VPK. Now that difference doesn't exist. So we feel that this is timely and prudent, and also will save some efficiencies on the district side of things, moving our allocation process to an every 4-year period. The other change I wanted to note here was related to the early learning scholarships in sections 4 and 5, and this is just trying to clarify specifically that eligibility can be based upon the parent guardian status of, for example, receiving mental health treatment, or a child status of receiving mental health treatment, and the same would be true of foster care as well. Those are the pieces I would like to point out, and again, happy to answer any questions that I can.
Members, I should say I had a bunch of questions when I first saw this bill, and directed them to the department, and chatted with the author as well. And so certainly if members have questions, now's the time to ask, obviously. But first, we'll see if there's any member of the public who wants to testify on House File 4176 as amended. I suspect not, but just want to make sure. And then, so yeah, member questions that anybody may have. If there are, we'll give a second. Lee Daniels, you've got kind of an expectant eyebrow raise. Remember Lee Daniels?
Thank you, Chair Pinto.
Yeah.
I don't know if you and I came in same year, and we've been doing this quite a long time, and I'm having a hard time following the amendment to the bill when you're adding in or
Reinstating
undoing
stricken language.
Yeah.
That
and
get a little
I've never
confusing.
seen that done before. I mean, it's hard to follow. So maybe if Representative Pérez-Vega, or if you'd like to just remind us what the actual changes mean, I would help my head from spinning.
Yeah, and I definitely do feel like I've seen that pretty regularly, but on the other hand, it can get real confusing. Yeah, because you look at the one bill and then it's, I find often what I do, Representative Daniels, is like take the pen and circle the thing that was crossed out to kind of tell me that it's coming back again, but it gets very confusing. So Ms. Morris or Representative Pérez-Vega, if you can just maybe walk us through, especially the things that were reinstated in the 824 amendment. I'm kind of first looking at line 2.25 to 2.26. Yeah, so Representative Pérez-Vega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to give it to our testimony, or to Shanna from MDE, who's got a clear information that she was able to define that for me as well when they made that change.
Sure, yeah, Ms. Morris, please.
Mr. Chair, Representative Daniels, the language on line 2.3 and 2.31 was originally proposed to be stricken, quite honestly, just to clean up statute. It wasn't intended to have a practical impact. We felt comfortable striking this language because of changes that the legislature made last year related to both including early childhood educators in the teacher bargaining units, effective immediately, as well as requiring licensure for them beginning in 2028.
You're talking about the lines at the very bottom of page 2, lines 2.30 and 2.31. Okay.
That's correct, yes. And so the original bill had proposed to strike those. We didn't feel like it would have had, that striking that language from law would have had any practical impact on the ground. But again, this bill gets out there, we have feedback, and we don't want to cause any consternation or concerns for anyone that salaries would be impacted or something otherwise, or that we had a different intent. So we just prefer to have it in kind of as comfort language, if you will, and not have that raise any flags.
And that was one, I guess that's one reinstated language. Let's see here. And then yeah, the 2.25 to 2.26, I think is just some cleanup so that now it looks like line 2.25 will say provide comprehensive program content aligned with, says a number of things, and instructional strategies that support transition to kindergarten through grade 3 academic standards. Ms. Morse?
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Representative Jans, on that particular one, we had originally had that language struck again because it's sort of being incorporated into the revised early learning standards that's referenced in the bill, and we thought sort of calling out specifically K through 3 academic standards wasn't necessary. But hearing some feedback, we thought, let's just put it back in because our intent was not to weaken the alignment of what happens in voluntary pre-kindergarten with the K-3 academic standards. So we've asked to have that reinserted as well.
Lee Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. Just a hypothetical question. Was this maybe with all these back and forth, maybe because we had the revisers getting about 3 hours of sleep a night, trying to go through this stuff, because I think there's a lot of things we need to untangle from last session yet. It may take years to get it all right.
It may also be the legislature sending, it's now, what are we up to, 4,200 bills? So that's kind of on all of us to a certain extent. But Ms. Morris?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Representative Youngs, to that specific change I just mentioned, it was actually a question from Senator Duckworth when we heard the bill in the Senate that made us go, yeah, let's clarify that.
Yeah, Lee Daniels?
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and again, members, part of my thinking for the laying over is because this is policy only and it goes to the floor, I'm thinking that as we identify if there's other early learning related policy issues, we can sort of keep this in mind as something to work with. So any other questions or comments from any members? Any further discussion on the bill? Not seeing it. Representative Pérez-Vega, you get the final word on your bill.
I'm just going to make this quick here. Thank you, Shanna, for being here and being able to answer the questions as we're all working alongside with the governor's language that he's proposed on this. And we look forward to supporting our early learners.
Thank you so much, Representative Pérez-Vega. And Ms. Morris, thanks to you for your work. And so House File 4176 as amended is laid over by the chair. But that one as well, please expect to see again. And then the final bill on the calendar is Representative Pérez-Vega's House File 3785. And so she moves House File 3785 for re-referral to the General Register. And there is an amendment to the bill. I know that was one of the ones that was handed out, the A1.
Yes.
Okay. No, those are different. And so Representative Pérez-Vega, do you wish to move the A1?
I wish to move the A1 amendment.
Okay, Representative Pérez-Vega, you can just explain. We'd had some conversations about it.
Yeah, it's, just remaining the language relating to the $50 million approved for the 2023 VPK.
Yeah, thank you. And members, I should
Simple.
say, so this section 4 of the bill on page 5 was included as it was originally drafted. And you'll see that it talks about that if we increase VPK participation limit, it talks about sort of what we would do. And I was interested and spoke with the bill's author, and she was okay with this as well, to say that if we do such a thing, then at that point we decide how it all works, and it feels premature and not something that I'd like to do at this point to kind of make the kind of decisions in Section 4. I would expect that we would be retroactively adjusting and et cetera, but that feels like the sort of thing that we would do if in fact we decided to increase VPK seats, and that's something that will come. In the meantime, though, we've got a terrific bill to make a fix in our underlying regions. So with that, any discussion, members, on the A1 author's amendment? I'll pause for a second in case Lee Daniels wants to. Nope, so not seeing any. So all in favor of the A1 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. So then House File 3785 as amended is before us. Representative Pérez-Vega.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. HF 3785, this is a bill to subdivide the urban VPK, voluntary pre-kindergarten region, into separate regions for Minneapolis and St. Paul. This bill has no fiscal note. This bill does not affect other VPK districts or their VPK seat allocations. It quite simply changes proposed in this bill allows MPS and SPPS to move to more effectively and efficiently administer the VPK programs. This bill separates Minneapolis and St. Paul public schools into individual VPK regions. As someone that loves my city of St. Paul and adores our twin, I believe that we do need to be separate. It allocates future VPK seats in the same manner as all other regions. Each region receives a percentage of funding equal to their share of the state's overall kindergarten enrollment. And the current blended Minneapolis/St. Paul region receives 8% of the VPK funding. Minneapolis and St. Paul VPK regions' future VPK allocations will be proportionate to their kindergarten's enrollment as a ratio of total statewide kindergarten enrollment. I am going to move this kind of quickly. I can keep going in the background if there's any questions, but I'd like to also offer at this time Jim Grathwell to step up to the mic from SPPS.
Thank you so much, Representative Pérez-Vega. Mr. Grathwell, if you can identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Mr. Chair, members, my name is Jim Grathwell, representing St. Paul Public Schools, I want to thank the author. I want to thank this body for making the investment last year in expanding this program. We're not bringing any data about how effective this program is. We're talking to about how we administer this program. And the short version is we'd like to talk less, do more. But under the current model where Minneapolis and St. Paul are in the same region, there's underlying changes in demographics, underlying changes in programs opening, programs closing. So this allows us to just run the numbers if we are working in our own district. We have a great partner in Minneapolis. We've been working together, making these adjustments all along, a great Department of Education team to work with. But as much as we like talking with all our partners, we mostly like to administer the program and deliver services.
Thank you so much. I'm going to see if there's any member of the public who wishes to testify on House File 3785. I should note, Mr. Grothwell, you represent St. Paul Public Schools.
Correct.
Representative Pérez-Vega and I, yeah, we're kind of big fans. This bill does impact the Minneapolis Public Schools. Unless we don't have a testifier, I don't necessarily need to call up the testifier from Minneapolis. But Mr. Grothwell, maybe you can just confirm what you understand from Minneapolis, and would invite Minneapolis to speak up if they disagree. But Mr. Grothwell.
Minneapolis and St. Paul support the bill, and we do like talking with each other. And Mr. Downham and I have a long and checkered history together, working together in this House of Representatives. I worked representing Minneapolis for many years. So we kind of know the waterfront. And basically, let's just run the numbers and deliver the services and not have to spend too much time talking, negotiating, and adjusting the base.
Okay, and the other thing I guess I want to confirm as well is that this is not something that would impact in any way any other regions of the state. This is merely taking the Minneapolis-St. Paul region, separating, but no impact on other regions. Yeah, I see the bill author nodding. Mr. Grothwell, anything you can add about that? Okay.
No fiscal impact, no impact on any other regions. It just allows Minneapolis and St. Paul to deliver these services more efficiently and effectively.
Okay, I think I phrased it this way, but I'll try again. Anybody from the public wish to testify? Not seeing any. So the bill is before us. Then we're going to move to member discussions and questions. So any discussions, questions? Representative Hudson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just kind of curious if the administrative difficulties that you're referencing, has there been any discussion with school districts in other areas of the state, the other metro districts and whatnot, about whether or not they're experiencing similar difficulties in talking to each other and negotiating with each other?
Mr. Grothwell.
Mr. Chair, Representative, I don't have any information about that, but it's not difficulty. It takes time and attention and staff time that we'd rather, and we sort out, we have, again, programs opening, programs closing, a program that had VPK allocations. What do we do if it closes? And we have an elementary school that we've closed. We're doing a major renovation. Where do we move those? Where do we move those? And we have to follow the letter of the law. So we have to say, Minneapolis, what's your next percentage of free and reduced lunch rate? MDE, does this work? We're thinking of moving these pieces and parts, those places. So if we don't have to, if we just have that one partner with MDE, it's a little bit easier.
Representative Hudson.
Thank you for that clarification, and it's always nice to see efficiency in government. So thanks.
Thank you. And Mr. Grothwell.
Mr. Chair, Representative Hudson, it's likely that other districts, and part of this bill kind of resets what the base is, would benefit from that statewide. But basically, we're just trying to make it a little faster and more efficient for everybody to get the numbers they need to deliver the programs we want to deliver.
I suppose one issue with this is because it's only 2 school districts, then the separation becomes more simple. I could imagine it being appealing to others. One challenge is because we're so underfunded in these areas, you've got regions with a bunch of different school districts, it'd be harder to break into each one in different region. I mean, ideally we would, because we would have the, funding and support to do it. Anyway, thank you. Anything further from members at all, discussion or otherwise? Oh, Representative Daniels, yeah. Lady Daniels.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my recommendation on this would be send the bill to Education Finance, because this is going to affect VPK funding. As you know, uses the formula funding, and this will change how seats are allocated between school districts. it'll have formula funding impacts in the future years. So just to be clear, I think it should maybe go to education finance first and then come back to us.
Thank you, Lee Daniels. Let's ask our staff about that. That had not occurred to me, and I would love to get the sense from staff as to kind of what the education finance overlap might be. I guess I wouldn't have thought so because it wouldn't impact the levy, et cetera, but because early learning is squarely within our jurisdiction, except to the extent that it impacts the levy. And I'll let our staff sort through for a second. They might need to consult with one another. Lee Daniels, you want to say anything else while they're doing that?
I just think they would be cautious to make sure to do it the correct way. And
Yeah.
this or maybe funding changes. Nice song.
Nice soundtrack to your remarks. Lee Daniels.
So I'll let the
Let's
staff-
let Ms. Beckel or Ms. Mock. All right, so we'll try Ms. Mock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Annie Mock, House Research. House staff are not aware that this would have a cost at any point, but we can't speak to whether jurisdiction-wise education finance may want to hear it. That's something for the chairs to decide.
Yeah, and can I say, even when you say no cost, and it wouldn't even have sometimes there are things that the net result is no cost, and yet there's sort of, things shifting around money-wise, but at this point, this is kind of allocating funds that we've already appropriated and deciding how they're appropriated. So I guess let me ask this, this would be sort of policy, essentially. Ms. Mock?
As far as House staff are aware right now, yes, this would be policy only.
Okay.
It doesn't increase the seat limit for the program. I suppose it's possible that MDE would have an administrative cost for making this change, possibly, but we aren't aware of that at this moment.
Well, that's an important question, I suppose. Yeah, Ms. Beckel, do you know, or Ms. Morse at all? Because I've been assuming that there was not a cost, but yeah, Ms. Morse, let's get you up here if we can. Because we'd want to, obviously, if we're sending it to General Register, that's an assumption that there's no fiscal note. So let's have our department tell us. Ms. Morris, what can you tell us about that question?
Mr. Chair, it's our understanding that this is just kind of like a restructuring of the statutes and maybe make it look a little bit nicer, but this doesn't actually change how seats are allocated at the statewide level by regions, within regions, except for Minneapolis and St. Paul.
So any cost, any fiscal note at all from MD, Ms. Morse?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is no, there's no
Okay.
change, so there should be no fiscal note.
Yeah, so that way, Lee Daniels, I think, in theory, I guess it would go to education policy, except that education policy doesn't, we're the early learning committee. So I think we can be pretty confident that a decision can be made in our committee. But Lee Daniels?
Yeah, maybe if I could get maybe staff, either Ms. Beckel or Ms. Moss, to clarify the funding for St. Paul, Minneapolis. Is there a difference in funding from one district to the other district? Because I understand there's maybe a substantial difference in funding. So if one dropped off and one gained, it's not going to be apples to apples. They're not going to be equal. Does that make sense at all?
Ms. Beckel or Ms. Mock? Ms. Beckel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lee Daniels, Solveig Beckel, House Fiscal. So currently, Minneapolis and St. Paul share a VPK region. And so right now, this bill only concerns this one region, and it allows for that region to be separated into two. So from my analysis, I didn't determine any changes to the state. There will be changes theoretically within Minneapolis and St. Paul. So on a local level, there will be potential fiscal changes that perhaps Mr. Grathwall can talk about. But I did not see any state impact fiscal changes.
And just to confirm, we should wrap up sort of quite momentarily here, but Lee Daniels?
Yeah, maybe, is your intention, Chair, to lay this bill over? Is that?
No, the plan was to send this to the General Register. It's not, it's policy only, it's within our jurisdiction. Anyway, yeah, Lee Daniels.
Hang on one second.
Okay, no problem.
Well, that's fine. We'll just, if we need to talk about it again, we'll pull it back from the.
And of course, yeah, and if there's concerns, reach out to the bill's author and to me as well. So I think we're all done with discussion. I'm going to go back to Representative Pérez-Vega for final word.
Thank you, Jim, for being here. Mr. Chair, I also just want to clarify that blend right now is 8% between that fourth region, which is Minneapolis and St. Paul. So when we're talking about the funds, it's not going to affect the other regions. We're just asking for a fifth region so that St. Paul can have a region for Minneapolis. And it's based off of the poverty levels demographically amongst those regions. So it would be just the same way of application. It's not taking away from the other regions, to be clear. So, but thank you, Representative Daniels, for addressing your questions as well. And I just want to be able to support our littlest ones and make sure that there are the most who are in need that are getting those VPK grants within our Minneapolis and St. Paul school districts.
Thank you so much, Representative Pérez-Vega and Mr. Grathwell, for your work. So with that, Representative Pérez-Vega renews her motion that House File 3785 as amended be re-referred to the General Register. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. The bill passes. Members, a reminder, we are going to be coming back, for those who are able, for a joint hearing of the Public Safety Committee at 10:30 in this same room. Sergeant at Arms has asked that the room be cleared, so we'd ask that everybody leave the room. If you're coming back at 10:30, which I hope that you are, we'll see you here shortly. Thank you so much. With that, the meeting is adjourned.